one hand, the easiest thing for all of us to do is talk. From the time that we're babies, we're making noises, and conversation with friends and family is easy and effortless. But as easy as conversation can be, real communication can be very difficult. The challenges that exist in communication, really pretty amazing. If I'm having a conversation with you, there is what I'm thinking, and then there is what I'm feeling. And then in conversation, I'm trying to express what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling in words to you. And it isn't just what I'm thinking and feeling, it's also what I mean, what I intend to say when I form words together in a sentence. So there's my thinking, my feeling, and my intention. But it doesn't end there, does it? If you're listening to me in conversation, you're hearing the words and you're trying to decipher my thinking and my feeling and my intention, and you're interpreting all that you've heard from me through your lens of experiences and understanding. It is so easy for you and I to be misunderstood by one another, and we can add things and flavors into what we're hearing from other people, and they say this, but I think they really mean this. Communication is difficult. And that's why even in marriages where maybe you've been married a long time, communication is still something you have to continually work at. And it isn't just in the sphere of marriages. It's in every relationship we have. It's even in our spiritual relationship. We have to work on our communication with God. Well, today we're going to talk about a particular kind of experience that we want to generate with our communication, with our words toward one another. We focused in the past couple of weeks on this series of wise words on the negatives that we want to avoid, the dangers of some speech. Today we're going to veer toward the positive, things that we should include, things that we want to work on including in our conversations and communications with people. But we're going to begin by making a statement that's a little provocative. It can seem a little bit negative, but let's see the weight of this idea and then we'll move forward. Our words force an experience onto other people. Now, I could say this a little bit more simply and say our words create an experience for other people. But I really want to stick with that word force. Because if we are in a conversation with someone, even if it's just a casual conversation and they're just casually listening, our words are still forcing a thought, an idea, a feeling, an experience onto the person that we're speaking to. Our words shape their perception of the world, themselves, their perception of our own self. Our words change the very nature of their thoughts, even if it's just for a moment. Our words are forcing someone that's listening to us to experience something. It can be really good or it can be really bad. Solomon said this in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. I see that last phrase there of the verse, those who love it will eat its fruits, meaning that if you like to talk, you're going to eat your words. That there are fruits that grow from the words we speak. And if you love speech, if you love talking, your words are going to come back to you, either good or bad. To say that death and life are in the power of the tongue means that our words have the power to inflict misery on people, or they can inflict life. Either way, our words are forcing an experience onto people who are sharing life with us, listening to us, engaged in conversation with us. Bad communication, poor choices of words, poor attitudes expressed in our communication can be like small amounts of poison that may be just repeated consistently, time and time again. A small amount of toxicity, a small amount of spiritual and emotional poison can be taken into someone's life and can bring ruin into someone's heart. change the way their thoughts are going, change the way their perceptions are formed. Or by that same token, it can be good words, good phrases, with good attitudes, good intentions, careful consideration, spoken repeatedly and consistently over time can bring out good and build someone up. Our words can either bring death or they can bring life. We began this series with this verse of scripture. I want to go back to it. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." That last phrase, that's the goal we want. We want to give grace to those who hear. We want to bring life to the people that we're doing life with. And even if it's just a stranger that we have a brief occurrence with, we want to bring life to people we engage with. So we want to give grace, undeserved favor, kindness, goodness to those who hear. There are these guidelines that are part of getting to that goal. The first is no corrupting talk, and we've talked about this in this series. Corrupting is like corrosive, decaying talk. It's not necessarily explosive. It's not just one word or one phrase blowing something up. It's a toxic language, toxic words, toxic attitudes that just have the power to bring slow decay to something that at one time was strong and healthy. We don't want that. We want words that are good for building up. Well, just like words can bring decay over a short period of time, good words can build up slowly but surely. Good words used consistently well, good communication can build someone up. It can strengthen their life. It can equip them to face challenges. It can encourage them. And this is an important phrase, as fits the occasion, meaning that we need to so think about our speech and so think about our communication with one another that we want to make sure that our words fit the need, fit the moment. This is actually a shift in the way we typically normally think about conversation. Because a lot of times in conversation, what we're most interested in is expressing our opinion, our feeling, our desires. What tends to happen for most of us is when we're engaged in conversations, we want to give voice to what we feel. But what this verse is encouraging us to do is to kind of step outside of our own interests for a moment. To step outside of our feelings, our ideas, our desires for a moment and ask, what does this occasion call for? This conversation that I'm having with someone, what is the need here? Is there a way that I can fit the occasion with words that bring grace, with words that build up? Is there a need present in this conversation that is an opportunity for me to redirect something that could be wrong towards something that could be built up and be stronger and better? It's stepping outside of ourselves and saying, I don't just want to talk to share my feelings, to share my ideas. I want to help make things better, even if it's in a small way. What's the need? What's the occasion? And how can I bring grace to the occasion? Now, a word on this speaking grace to those who hear. There are times in which maybe we do want to give our opinion, and perhaps we should, and it's appropriate and fitting. Does the idea of giving grace mean that we never say things that are difficult to say and perhaps difficult to hear? Think of it this way. The word grace describes everything about how God relates to you and I. He gives us goodness that we have not deserved. But at no point, at no time does God cease from speaking truth to us in our walk with Him. That even though He gives us grace, He gives us goodness, He gives us favor that we have not deserved, He doesn't withhold truth, nor should you and I. To speak grace to someone doesn't mean we avoid speaking truth. It doesn't mean we shy away from confronting things that need to be confronted. Rather, it does mean that we tailor them in such a way, that we tailor our words in such a way that it fits the occasion and ultimately leads to goodness. Because there are times when truth does correct and it does reprimand even, And at times, truth disciplines, but the end result of what is at times uncomfortable and unpleasant is always towards something that is more pleasant. It creates a better end than would have existed without the truth being spoken. The same Paul that wrote in Ephesians 4, verse 29, these words about no corrupting talk, good for building up, fit the occasion, give grace to those who hear. In that same chapter, just a few verses earlier, he writes this in verse 15, rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. Speaking the truth. How? In love. Meaning truth is helpful and beneficial. But if it's not spoken in love, truth may not be heard. In order for you and I to speak truth in a way that someone will hear, listen to, and consider, and actually make adjustments in their life because of it, there has to be love behind the words and in the truth as it is expressed. Love allows truth to be accepted. It allows truth to be integrated and brought in. Loving one another doesn't mean we just accept all things equally. The scripture tells us that love does not rejoice in doing wrong. It delights in the truth. Love doesn't simply allow us to speak lies to one another or accept lies from one another for the sake of making an easy conversation. What true love does is it says, this is a better path. This is a better idea. This is a better understanding that will lead to better choices and a better life. So therefore, we want to steer toward the truth. Love does not allow what is wrong to have dominion and mastery over our lives or our relationships. There is a turnaround effect that proper words spoken in the proper way can bring about in someone's life. Take a look at Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. Notice the turnaround there. Anxiety can weigh a heart down. Think of the idea of a soul carrying a burden that's too heavy for it to carry. And boy, if there's ever a time in which we can see this happening in our culture, it's now. Anxiety, fear, frustration, through the roof. We see more and more examples and incidences of people living on the emotional edge and tempers ready to flare and ready to explode at a moment's notice. It's easy to find people who have a heart full of anxiety. It's difficult to find people who have a word to combat that anxiety. What if you and I willfully chose the role of being a person who speaks good words into the lives of other people? Beginning in our family, beginning with those closest to us, beginning in our own household. What if we say, it is my job to speak good words that lift a heart up? You imagine what your marriage would be like, what your relationship with your children or with your parents would be like if you saw it as your personal responsibility to speak goodness into their lives, into the relationships in such a way that it lifted their spirits. I mean, what this verse is telling us is that our words have the power to change someone's trajectory in life. You can change what they're feeling for a moment. You can not only change someone's feeling for a moment, what if your words rightly spoken at the right time to someone doesn't just change a moment? What if it changes their day? And who knows how differently their choices will be if they have been lifted up rather than weighed down. And then what if the domino effect of one person whose soul has been lifted up rather than weighed down, what domino effect is put into play by their choices and their words from that point moving forward in the day? Is it possible that our good words to one person could become residual and bringing goodness into other lives as well? Is it possible that we could not just change one moment, one day, but we could change several people's days? Is it possible that we could change someone's day and change someone's week? Is it possible that we could speak good words into someone's life that lifts their soul, and we actually change a course of their life. I'm convinced from seeing it happen, I'm convinced from personal experience that this is the power of words. And if you and I chose to say, it is my personal responsibility to speak words that lift up those around me, then we literally become life changers, maybe life savers. What if we began practicing most intently at home, speaking words that lift up hearts that are weighed down? We develop that practice. It carries over into our workplace, carries over into our hobbies, carries over even when we travel and greet strangers. What if it carries over into every area of our lives? What if it carries over into our church relationships? What if it carries over into our business dealings? That we speak words that lift up souls that are weighed down. Oh, by the way, I know you know this, but I'm going to say it just to refresh our memories of this. You probably meet more people in a day's time who have a soul that is weighed down than you ever realize. There probably are only a few times in a day's transactions and conversations where you will encounter someone who is honestly displaying their soul if it's weighed down. Most of the time, people will do just what you and I do. We can have 1,000 things going on in our mind, and our soul can be weighed down, and we will not demonstrate any of that to the people around us. And I recognize at times that's a necessary and helpful way to live. It's what responsibility often requires of us. But isn't it good to remember that we're always dealing with someone who is experiencing a hurt, a battle, a struggle, an issue that we're completely unaware with? What if we just chose to be the kind of people, regardless of what the other person is displaying to us, what if we just chose to be the kind of people who are constantly bringing words that lift up into our conversations and communications? Well, then that kind of brings the question, what are good words that we need to say? What are good words that we need to bring into our vocabulary and into our conversations, into communications that can lift up this soul that perhaps is troubled? Well, rather than just giving phrases and words right now, here's what I want to do. I want to explore categories of good words we need to say. So I want us to think about a more broad idea of there are different categories of words and speech that we need to incorporate. And then we'll talk about some examples. So here's definitely a category of good words that we need to say and to speak to those around us. The first is words that bring healing. You deal with a lot of wounded souls in your life that you are unaware of their wounds. Some are obvious. Some are very visible, and some will share them with you, but a lot of others won't. What if you and I were consciously aware that there are people in our lives that have some type of wound, some type of damage to their soul? Maybe it's severe, maybe it's traumatic, maybe it's just a matter of they got their day started off on a bad note, and it just feels like it's getting worse for them. In this category, there are words that will speak calmness and quietness to someone in their times of anxiety. This is a category in which there are words that we would need to use and an attitude and demeanor in which we speak them that will bring peace in times of conflict. Maybe your coworker has just had it out with their spouse before they went to work. I mean a serious soul-wounding battle. Maybe they're showing up at work and they had it out this morning with their children. Maybe in their mind, they're coming to work feeling like they failed as a parent, failed as a spouse. Maybe they're just feeling frustration after frustration in their life. What are words that you and I could speak to someone in an agitated or distant state that could bring a sense of calm or a sense of peace in their conflict or a sense of comfort in their times of misery. Even if the majority of the people that you will meet today or tomorrow in your life are not in need of words that bring healing of some type, I promise you, it's just a matter of time before you do encounter someone in your life, in your home or in your workspace or in conducting of your business that has a wound that is affecting everything else in their life. It's just like you stub your toe. It changes how you walk for a little bit, doesn't it? Then if you have a serious injury to your foot or to your knee, it changes your gait for a long period of time. How many of us have had our lives and our behavior change because of wounds that we've really never dealt with or never let anyone else see? What if we were people that are aware of that and we choose to be healers in a world full of hurting people? Another category of good words that we need to say would be words that create security. There are many of us that will at times in our lives will fear rejection, will fear loss. We will feel that we're going to end up on the losing end of things. And even if we perhaps like to put on a strong front of not being afraid of anything and being very secure and confident, the human experience tells us that deep inside, most of us fear loss. Most of us fear rejection. And what we need, in fact, what we often search for, is something that will either cover up the fears and anxiety, or we find truth that speaks to it and gives us assurance. Just a word to the wise here. If you've been married 5 years or 15 years, your spouse still needs to know that you will never leave them. Your kids that you know you would give your life for still need to be told routinely of how you will do anything in the world for them, for their good. Because deep down inside, all of us recognize that humanity is fragile. We all recognize that life is temporary. And we've all seen and heard examples of good lives that go haywire. And maybe on most days you never consider the possibility that those things could happen to you, but at some day, at some point, you will. Is it not helpful to be surrounded by people, to have relationships with people who give you a sense of assurance, who give you a sense of security, who speak words, who communicate ideas to you that bring security, an assurance that everything really will be okay? Security is tied into hope. Security is tied into confidence. And if you want people around you to live with confidence, with hope, find ways to bring in words of assurance and security. Another category of good words we need to say would be words that move them forward. Words that move other people forward from where they presently are. Meaning there are times in life in which we all get stuck. We get stuck in a problem. We get stuck in a bad habit. Maybe our thinking gets in a negative loop where we just keep rehashing the same thoughts and feelings over and over again. And then if you think that, you just can't get a break in life, and if you settle in on that thought, then an amazing thing begins to happen. You begin to see evidence after evidence that, oh, there it is again, more proof. I just can't get ahead in life. Maybe you'll fall into a rut, into a routine of feeling like God just doesn't listen to you. God just doesn't care about you. And if you settle into that thought before long, every negative experience you have, every negative feeling you have, or every negative thing you say or hear just reinforces it. We all get stuck. We need people in our lives that will speak words to us that help us move forward. At times, these words that we need to speak to people to help them move forward past a pain, past a problem, past a struggle, past a rut, maybe they just need words of inspiration. Maybe we just need to buy them a poster of a kitty cat hanging with a limb that says, "Hang in there, Friday's on the way." It doesn't have to be complex. Can we inspire someone with a word, with an idea, with a phrase that allows them to see there's more than what they're seeing at the moment? More than what they're experiencing at the moment? Can we say words to help them move forward? Maybe words that move people forward at times will be words of correction. Maybe they will be lovingly finding a better approach to say, maybe this is a different way of thinking about this. Maybe this is a better way of living out your life. Maybe this is a better way of making these choices. Maybe here's something to consider. Maybe those words that move people forward are words that create an awakening. That the phrase, the idea that we're trying to communicate is actually disruptive. Can shock the mode of thinking, break them out of the routine. If you and I speak words that help propel people forward, we're changing their moment, we're changing their day, possibly changing the trajectory of their life. Another category of good words would be words that give respect. Listen, for everyone that exists in our culture, there are days in which you go home and you feel like you've lost that day. That you will maybe not feel as confident as you did the day before. That you will maybe not feel as successful as you did the day before. You will not feel like you've accomplished much like you thought you wanted to accomplish. And you'll feel like you've been diminished a little bit. Maybe you've had an incident at work. Maybe you've had an incident at home that makes you feel a little diminished. We need people in our lives that communicate value, honor, and respect to us. And we need to be people who communicate value, honor, and respect to others. We need to communicate, especially to the people in our household, that if they feel diminished and worn down by the world, that they still have lost nothing in our eyes. That perhaps your spouse comes home and they've had a day at work in which they felt like they have failed at everything. Isn't it nice if they have a spouse that says, "There's nothing about you that has changed in my eyes except maybe for the better"? What happens if we give respect, value, and honor to the people around us? Now, here's the thing. Here's why I went to categories rather than phrases and words first. Words that you speak that fit into these categories need to be your words. There are words and phrases that exist in my vocabulary that I like to rely on, and hopefully I rely on the idea more than I do the exact phrases, but those are words that mean something to me as I share them with other people. You've got to do the same. I can't give you a list of words that if you repeat these words, you'll fill all these categories and all of your communication, your relationships will be just perfect. You've got to sweat over it. You've got to work on it. And the reason why I'm stressing this is because the more effort you put into your communication, the more benefits you will reap from it. And the more benefits the people you're communicating with will reap from it. You've got to exert intentional consideration and effort into thinking, what are the words I need to say to him or to her to make a difference? It's not a program that we memorize. It's an idea that we embrace that says, I will intentionally direct energy in my life toward being the kind of person who considers what people around me need to hear. It's intentional, and by the fact that it is intentional, it will require effort. So here's what I want to do briefly. I just want to give you some examples. An example or two of phrases that if these ideas and words are incorporated into our conversations, they have the power to make a difference. So here's a few examples. Take them for what you will. Use them as perhaps seeds for your own trees of words to grow in your life. You are stronger than this problem. You are bigger than this problem you're facing. You are greater and stronger than the pain you're feeling right now. It will not master you. I wish you could see all of the good in you that I see. You matter more to me than you know. And no matter how much you matter to me, you matter even more to God. I respect your effort and your dedication. I respect how you handle those problems. I respect how you treat people. I have such respect and admiration for you. You are so good at fill in the blanks. You are so good at making me smile. You are so good at reminding me God loves me. Or maybe it's just more mechanical. You are so good at taking care of the house. You are so good at taking care of our checkbook. Thank you for how you make me feel. Well, these next two are hard. I was wrong. The second one, maybe even more difficult. You're right. I'm sorry. I want you to know that I will always give you my best. Maybe on my worst days, I fall short of that. But that's my intention and my heart. Like it or not, you can't get rid of me. I will never leave you. Now, by the way, like it or not, you can't get rid of me is something you say to someone you're in a committed relationship to, not someone that's got a restraining order against you. Just throwing that out here. Last example. It's one I've never actually said. You can have the last brownie. But someday, maybe I'll be able to. Now, here's the thing. Those are examples. But your words that you speak to people that you love, people that you care about, people that you just randomly meet, that you want to give a lift to, it has to come from you. It's got to come from your heart and mind working together, your emotions and your thinking working together to express a genuine, sincere desire to lift someone up that may be weighed down in their heart. It'll take effort and it'll take time. This won't be a habit that you develop overnight, and it won't be a habit that you ever perfect. Because no matter how good you are at speaking words that lift people up when their heart is weighed down, there will be other days when you're the one whose heart is weighed down. And you will speak rashly, and you will speak out of an emotional outburst, and your frustration and your anger and your hurt will be dictating your words. That's going to happen. So until the day comes that you and I leave this earth, we're a work in progress. We're being healed, and we're continuing to work at bringing healing to others. Maybe to bring words of healing, you first need your soul to be healed as well. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18 says, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrust, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." We can have words that cut to the soul and leave a wound, or we can give careful thought and consideration to words that bring healing to souls. And maybe that's going to begin by you and I listening to words of healing from God, in which He reminds you that you matter, that He has loved you with an everlasting, never-ending love, and that He is offering a salvation to you that does not depend on your goodness, but on His. That you have no sin in your past or in your present that He can't give you forgiveness of. So if you're here this morning and maybe you're feeling the wounds of life adding up, then let's go to the great physician, the ultimate healer, Jesus, and ask him to come into our heart, our soul, and make us well. If you're in this room and you want to make the decision today to come to Christ, to be a Christian, then I encourage you in just a moment when we stand and sing to step out from your seat and come forward. We do this because we want to know about your decision. And we also have members of our prayer team that will be to my left in a moment that would love to talk with you and pray with you, pray for you. Maybe you're here and you're a Christian, but you want to pray for a situation in your life or for someone you love. Then our prayer team wants to pray with you for that as well. And if you're watching online and you're making that decision today to follow Christ, please message us. We want to know and celebrate with you. Let's stand together as we worship and sing.